Damaging winds, hail, flooding, and tornadoes. Kansas sees it all. But how can you prepare for so many different types of weather?
Layers save lives. In other words, we encourage everyone to have multiple ways to get warnings. You really can't rely on just one source. And again, what we do is unique because we actually call people. So a call at 2 a.m. could be more impactful than anything else that you might do. Again, it's just one of several options that people should avail themselves of to be as safe as possible.
In the age of all things digital, Weather Call believes that a phone call still receives the most urgent response.
Your location is in the polygon that we're monitoring. The phone rings. And even in 2022, I don't know about you, but when the phone rings, and if I've saved that contact with a certain name, I'm going to answer it. If my wife is calling me, I answer it. If it's a robocall, I don't answer it. And we train our users to store our number as weather call. So when they see weather call calling, they know it's a serious threat.
Regardless of who you get your weather alerts from, it's important that you can hear the alert go off in case of an overnight emergency.
Well, a lot of people appreciate the phone call. We have hundreds and hundreds of testimonies of people who said the phone call saved their life because it came at 2 or 3 in the morning. And thankfully they didn't put it on, silent so that they heard the phone call. So we also encourage people to, when you know it's going to be an active weather night, leave the ringer on.
Now, the 13 Weather Team also recommends having multiple ways to receive your warnings. You can have that on your 13 Weather app, a NOAA weather radio, or even watch us live here on television. Now, if you want to learn more about Storm Call and Weather Call, simply go to the WWW Weather homepage here, click on the Storm Call tab at the top, and choose which service is best fit for you. So get ready and get prepared. This week, we will show you how you can prepare for the Kansas storm season.
Is devastating, to say the least, when it hits, but we were very fortunate.
Roger Brown and his wife took shelter in their South Lawrence home as a tornado ripped through in 2019.
I went outside like a normal Kansas guy again to look at the tornado and looked about an eighth of a mile away from my house, couldn't see the highway. They said it was rain wrapped, and that's when I knew it was certainly a real deal and we were going to get hit. We went to the safe room and didn't even get the door closed totally in there before it actually hit. So, close call. I got the door about this far closed before the tornado actually hit. So that's how close it was for us being damaged or us being injured.
10 minutes later, when the storm had passed, Roger and his wife came out of the storm shelter to find complete destruction.
Everything else was gone. When we finally were able to come out of the storeroom room about 10 minutes after it hit, of course we were walking through several inches of water in the basement from the rain. Had to climb over most of the debris in our staircase, which was roof, ceiling, and everything from the main part of the house.
When a tornado strikes, it is important to have a plan of action already in place.
We find that when people have a plan and practice that plan, they generally are a lot calmer and can get to their shelter quicker than people who maybe didn't have a plan and don't know what to do, or who are maybe scrambling last minute to grab stuff and put it together to go into their shelter. So having a plan and practicing that kind of gives you that confidence when you really need it.
It's also critical to communicate your plan with everyone in the household and to ensure that everyone knows where to take shelter.
Your best sheltering option if you are in a tornado warning would be to go to a basement or an engineered storm shelter. If you do not have either of those available, you want to be on the lowest level of whatever building that you're in or your house and find a small interior room that doesn't have any windows. And if you're able to get into one of those places, you stand a very good chance of staying safe.
For Roger Brown, he plans to take shelter a little sooner if he again finds himself in a tornado's path.
I would caution people in the future to pay great attention to your weather reports, your weather people. If they tell you to take cover, please take cover.
This oil fire was caused by a recent lightning strike. And after lightning struck this Topeka home, it nearly burned to the ground. Lightning is the most common weather hazard we face. So how can we avoid getting struck?
Anything that has substantial walls in a roof is your first option. So if you have something like a lean-to structure, Those generally are not safe, as lightning can come in sideways through a structure such as that.
Now, if you are out and about and unable to get into a sturdy structure, your car is always a good second option.
So a car is a perfectly safe place to be as long as you roll up your windows. Anything with sides and a roof, such as a vehicle, is a safe option to get into.
So what about the saying, when thunder roars, go indoors? I mean, can a simple rhyme like that really get people to understand the dangers surrounding a lightning strike?
Something that's easily remembered, such as a jingle or something that rhymes, may be more beneficial for them in the long run, as that's something that they can quickly recall and then take action on that.
It's also a good idea to know the forecast, because you never know when or where lightning will first strike.
The first lightning strike can be just as deadly as the last lightning strike, so you may not hear or see that first one. So if you see skies darken or you see a thunderstorm approach, then generally advisable to start to seek shelter in a substantial building.
So the next time you hear thunder roar, be sure and get indoors. Thomas Schmidt, 13 News.
There's just so much hail out here. It's all coming down this valley. Holy mother. This is unbelievable.
Hail can damage just about anything, so your best defense is to cover as much as you can before it hits.
You know, there's only so much we can do to mitigate the damage from hail to our stuff, our property, our homes, but there are some things you can do. Certainly move your car into the garage, and there's certain things that I want to know about before they get to my location, and large hail is certainly one of them. So I want to have time to try to get my car in the garage or secure any items I might have around my property and get inside, stay away from windows.
Hail becomes much more destructive, though, when it's given a nice thrust from thunderstorm winds.
One of the things we saw last December, oddly enough, with the severe weather then, was the combination of hail and wind will break windows. And so when it comes to severe thunderstorm warnings, we don't want to underestimate the threat, the risk associated with large hail and damaging winds, because those two together can certainly break windows.
Now, we see our fair share of large hail and damaging winds, but it's important to know how large and how strong, and to react ahead of the storm.
So it's something that we don't want people to get too complacent with, because I think when we talk about severe weather, severe thunderstorm warnings don't get the attention that tornado warnings do, and yet they produce most of the property damage every year in Kansas.
The biggest concerns with wind, though, is what it can throw in your direction.
Wind of 65, 75 miles an hour, well, it's the debris that gets picked up and blown into structures that does the most damage. And so anything that you may have in your yard could end up getting picked up and blown into your home and produce damage. And so if you have the time and the ability, if you know something's coming, go out and secure some of those loose objects so they don't turn into projectiles.
We've seen flooding before, and we will see it again. The first step to prepare for a flood is to know your flood risk.
Look around, take some geographical study, if you will, and see where the water flows in your area. Are you prone to flooding of those? Are you in those kind of situations or areas? So that's the first thing to do, see if you're really at risk for it.
Now, you may find yourself to be in a flood-prone area, but there are ways you can help prevent flooding.
Anything you can do to mitigate that flood, mitigate those waters to keep them from coming in your home, or whatever else you're trying to protect, possible sandbagging, maybe finding a way to divert it. Once the flood does happen, those are the things you need to really kind of pay attention to that's in your home, where the generators are, where electrical outlets are. Keep yourself safe. Then beyond that, find a known location you can evacuate to if you had to.
It's also important not to walk or drive into flood waters.
So we always say turn around, don't drown. Don't go into the flood water. Don't walk through it. Don't swim in it. Stay completely out of it, because you don't know what's in there that can harm you. And the water itself can sweep your cars away, sweep you away. It's hard to tell.
And having a plan makes it easier for emergency responders during an evacuation.
We try to stay way in front of the storm and get those warnings out as soon as we can. That's why we ask people to have a preparedness plan, so when we say you need to enact it, that's the time to enact.
So be ready with your plan when waters rise.